Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies podcast brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, where code DNVR is going to get you some special offers. Emergency pod. Colorado Rockies have signed Kris Bryant. Sources, many sources that we are hearing, even right here in the Rockies facility, broadcasting live from Salt River Fields, the Rockies complex, the Rockies side of things in right field. Only media member here stuck around, do some things. And what do you know? The Rockies make a massive move, signing one of the biggest free agents on the market. Kris Bryant, 7 years, $182 million. That deal stacks up as the largest ever given to a free agent by the Colorado Rockies, surpassing the one given to Mike Hampton back in December 2000. You may remember it. 8 years, $121 million. Didn't end very well, but this one, the Rockies are hoping end a lot better. Bryant is that bat that GM Bill Schmidt has been talking about all off season long. The Rockies need to get better in the middle of their lineup. They need to hit more home runs, and they need to get that kind of pop from the outfield. And Kris Bryant answers that for them. Now, Bryant, 2015 National League Rookie of the Year award winner with the Chicago Cubs. 2016 immediately turns around and is the National League MVP there. Even helps the Chicago Cubs break the curse of the Billy Goat, winning their first World Series in 108 years. He was a third baseman there. Ryan McMahon is already at third base. We've seen the signing of Jose Iglesias at shortstop. So the idea of McMahon moving over to shortstop to accommodate Bryant doesn't really seem like that's going to be a thing that happens. So that means Bryant logically is going to be out there in left field. Now, he very well on off days could give Ryan McMahon some rest. Now, you could say McMahon can go over to first base, but no, Kris Bryant himself has played some first base. He's also played a little bit of center field during his time with San Francisco. They really seem to like the idea of having him out there again with the revamped analytics department. Maybe you have a better idea as to where to position your outfielders, and you can get by with a player like Kris Bryant out in center field. Where to go with the lineup? Got to think about the implications of that. He's going to be in the mix of it. Is that in the middle of the order, batting fourth? Is that batting third? Is that batting second? He's even spent some time batting leadoff in his career. On-base percentage, not incredibly high, nothing that you would say, hey, this is a guy like in the Kyle Schwarber vein where you'd be almost pretty happy with him batting leadoff. The clock bases as much, isn't a base certain, but numbers aren't quite there. 376 on-base percentage over the entirety of his career. But really what you've done is you bought a wedge, very nice wedge, very expensive wedge, nearly $200 million to squeeze right in between Charlie Blackmon and Ryan McMahon, the two left-handed bats that you have in your lineup. Off the top of the dome, I've got Ryan McMahon batting second in this lineup with Bryant batting third, Charlie Blackmon fourth, CJ Cron fifth, probably Brendan Rodgers batting sixth. And so now you just got to figure out what's going on in center field. And you've got a DH spot, which we know is going to be rotated around with a bunch of guys. But the lineup looks a lot more viable right now with one extra bat in the middle of it, a flexible bat that can be second, third, fourth, you name it, up and down the lineup. It's much more viable right now with this lineup. Very exciting time. Bill Schmidt has gone out and spent $270-something million. I already forgot what I wrote in the article posted over on the DNVR.com. Now only 50 cents for your first month. But Bill Schmidt has made quick work this offseason, re-signing Elias Diaz, or rather extending him, the catcher who had a breakout season, one of the best in team history. You also had CJ Cron getting extended by 2 years. He was going to become a free agent. He gets 2 years, $14.5 million. Same amount of money as Elias Diaz right there. That's $29 million. Antonio Senzatella earns himself a 5-year extension worth $50.5 million. Now we're at $80.5 million. Jhoulys Chassin comes back on a 1-year deal for $1.25 million. And they have the most recent 3 free agents that Bill Schmidt has come to terms with since we've come back from the lockout. That being Jose Iglesias to play shortstop in place of Trevor Story, Chad Kuhl to be the 5th man in this rotation, and Alex Colomé, a guy who is undoubtedly a closer. But Black hasn't quite said that there's going to be a battle, but he also hasn't said that the job is not Alex Colomé. So there you've got 4 big guys that have come in, and really none bigger right now than Kris Bryant. The Las Vegas product was really sung to and really try to be brought in to Philadelphia there with his former teammate back in the Little League days of Bryce Harper. But no, Philadelphia goes the Kyle Schwarber route, probably because a little too rich for Philadelphia's blood. But nevertheless, the Rockies get the deal done. Now, Bryant's deal is, as I said, 7 years, $182 million for the third baseman, left fielder. That's $26 million annually. It will be the highest on the team, of course. It ties him for 24th highest annual salary of all time. Big money here going out to secure the services of the 4-time All-Star Kris Bryant. Those of you that were out at the All-Star game last year at Coors Field got to see him. He was there representing the Cubs for one final time before he was traded over to the San Francisco Giants, where he finished up the 2021 season. What does that mean for the payroll? Well, Bill Schmidt said that, you know what, they were going to add a little bit this off season, which really to me said, I don't know that they can afford one of the bigger name outfielders if you're only going to add a little bit to the payroll. Next offseason, they were going to add a little bit more so that it reflected more of what they had in 2018, 2019. But no, Bill Schmidt has gone out and he's shoved it all that money right to the middle of the table. Right now, the payroll sits at about $141 million right now. In 2018, it was at 137, roughly, if you round it up to the nearest million. Which I am prone to do mathematically. 2019, it was at its highest. Of course, it did not make the postseason, but on opening day, it was at $145.2 million. And so the Rockies right now sitting at about $141 million with the addition of Kris Bryant on a 7-year, $182 million contract. Now, of course, we'll get to your comments here in a second. If you've got a super chat, of course, that's going to move right to the front of the line. This deal does come a mere 13 months after the Rockies offloaded a big $250-some million contract from Nolan Arenado to the St. Louis Cardinals for a package of prospects that was ultimately headlined by Austin Gomber and Elhuris Montero. In addition to getting rid of their franchise cornerstone, 8-time Gold Glove Award winner, perennial MVP candidate in Nolan Arenado, perennial All-Star in Nolan Arenado, Rockies did ship $51 million to get him off the books. Obviously, that is strange to have some two transactions like that so close together. One, offloading so much money or so much payroll in the form of one superstar contract and literally giving money away for another team to take that contract, and then a little more than a year later, go ahead and bring in a guy for almost the same amount that you took off the books. Obviously, very strange. One interesting wrinkle to all of that, of course, is that was under the Jeff Bridich regime, not under Bill Schmidt. Bill Schmidt inherited this team from Jeff Bridich, who resigned in about the third week of April, took over on May 3rd as the interim general manager. So while for all intents and purposes, he was in control of what was going on at the trade deadline, holding on to both Trevor Story and John Gray, dealing away Michael Givens, getting a nice little package of prospects. Noah Davis on the 40-man roster. Case Williams they brought back, kid from Castle Rock that they had drafted in 2020. So you have those things hanging over Bill Schmidt a little bit, but again, still just the interim. The Rockies will get a compensation pick for Trevor Story once he lands somewhere. Of course, if his deal is at $50 million or more, Rockies, the compensation pick will be that much better for the Rockies in general. John Gray, though, that's the one you look back and you say, well, what if, what could have been, traded him at the deadline, could have brought in some nice prospects, improved the farm system a decent amount, maybe even give him a qualifying offer so that if he does sign elsewhere, of course, you can recoup that draft pick. Or if he accepts the qualifying offer, you've got a guy in-house that's already proven himself in so many ways, knows how to pitch at Coors Field, has been a leader of this clubhouse. All the starting pitchers are talking about how they miss Johnny, as Antonio Senzatella likes to refer to him as. But nevertheless, Schmidt holds on to those pieces, will only get the compensation pick for Story, nothing for John Gray. But here now, he makes the big move, makes the big splash. Rockies get Kris Bryant, rather unbelievably here, as a free agent. Now, although his contract is rather large, the Rockies do not have to give up a draft pick. Players who are traded in the middle of a season, they're not eligible to get a qualifying offer. It's one of the reasons why Nick Castellanos and Michael Conforto really weren't great fits for the Rockies. Great players, would have been nice to have them on the team, on the roster, in the clubhouse. Maybe even could get a good deal on a player like Michael Conforto looking to bounce back. 1-2 year pillow deal, very incentive laden, make him earn it. But the Rockies would be charged that third highest draft pick, and that's simply not worth it for this team who went out, and when they signed Ian Desmond back after the 2016 season, they lost the 11th overall pick. And that's they've still been reeling from that ever since. So of course they can't afford to make a move like that. I had just gotten off the phone with Drew Goodman. In fact, we were recording the podcast, which I don't think is ever going to see the light of day. It ended with, hold on a second, Patrick. We've got some big news, and big news indeed is what we have. We don't have to speculate as to whether Jorge Soler is going to be in the outfield for the Rockies. You never know. Maybe the Rockies aren't finished just yet. It's not going to be maybe a bargain bin guy like Jorge Soler, maybe even a guy that has had a couple down seasons like Jock Peterson. No, that's not going to be the case. It's going to be Mr. Las Vegas himself, the man with the superstar good looks, the man who looks like our own Hank, Henry Chisholm. If you're a DNVR member, there's a good resemblance between those two guys. And so Kris Bryant, he's bringing those good looks. He's bringing a really great personality. He's a player that everyone speaks incredibly highly of. His wife is amazing. His family is amazing. Really good person to have in this clubhouse. Obviously, a guy like that's going to fit in just about anywhere, but particularly in this Rockies clubhouse where they already have a bunch of really, really good guys. And now we all get to sit back, have a little bit of fun, and say, what does this lineup look like? What does it look like if Ryan McMahon needs a day off? What does it look like if CJ Cron needs a day off, or if Blackman needs to have a spell over at DH? And you can play fantasy GM with some really fun new pieces. Jose Iglesias, Alex Colomé, Chad Kuhl, probably as your number 5 man in the rotation. And for everyone saying, yeah, but wouldn't you rather have Nolan Arenado? Wouldn't you rather have Trevor Story? We can have all of those conversations over the next weeks and, well, not really even a month, because we've got opening day on April 8th against the Los Angeles Dodgers right at home at Coors Field. But you can make all of those speculations. We'll talk about it up here coming up on the DNVR Rockies podcast over the next weeks ahead. We'll have exclusive interviews and content. But remember, there is now one extra wild card team, and it doesn't matter where the wild card teams come from. So the NL West is loaded with powerhouses like the Dodgers. The Giants have reloaded despite the retirement of Buster Posey. The Padres, we know, are making big moves, still knocking on the door of Freddie Freeman. Who knows what A.J. Preller has next? But even if both those teams get into the postseason, rather, if all 3 of those teams get into the postseason, that still leaves one wild card left. It's anyone's game here at this point. Rockies have a long way to go. Things need to still have to turn their way, I think, in many ways. But you have to look at them a little bit differently now with Kris Bryant in their lineup on the field. Makes it very, very intriguing. Thursday, first spring training game, April 8th, opening day at Coors Field. Very excited. Looking to see you there. Thanks for everyone jumping into the comments section again. thednvr.com, only 50 cents for your first month, and an annual membership if you're ready to go all in already with all the great Nuggets, Avs, Broncos content, all that and more. You get a free shirt at dnvrlocker.com with that annual membership. We've got a lot of momentum going on right now. But you know what they say about momentum? It's only as good as tomorrow's podcast and our emergency podcast. So I'll talk to you then.